In the massive, multi-billion-dollar troubled teen industry, you had these two giants, CEDU and WWASP. For years, they seemed like totally separate organizations. But what if that wasn't the whole story? What if they were secretly working from the very same playbook?
Okay, so let's start with what is basically the smoking gun. On the left, you're looking at scripts from a CEDU workshop, something they called a profit. And on the right, prompts from a WWASP seminar. Just look at the structure of this parent confrontation exercise. CEDU has you say, "My mother told me, made me feel." And WASP, "Mom, I resent you for, I'm angry that, I'm sad that." The words are a little different, sure, but the emotional formula, the psychological roadmap they're forcing you down, it is almost identical. That is way, way too specific to be a coincidence.
And that really is the question that's going to drive this whole investigation, isn't it? Was this just two groups who, by some crazy chance, came up with the exact same controversial techniques? Or are we looking at the textual fingerprints of a direct copy? Come on, let's follow the clues.
To get to the bottom of that, we have to look bigger than just one script. We have to look at their entire methodology. It's time to build the case file and see if there's a whole shared toolkit of psychological techniques at play here. Okay, so this is where it gets really interesting. This chart, it just lays it all out. The systematic overlap is undeniable. It's not just one exercise. You see WWASP's magical child work? It maps directly to CEDU's children's profit. And look at this, attack-style peer feedback. It's the same exact principle, just with a different name. The confessional homework, the isolation tactics, it's all here. This table really shows us that the core engine of both programs was built from the very same parts. And this diagram right here, it basically shows us how they did it. CEDU's program was spread out over almost 2 years. But what did WWASP do? They took that entire toolkit and compressed it, crammed it into an incredibly intense 3-day seminar. Day 1, Day 2, Day 3, you can trace pretty much every major emotional roller coaster in WWASP's seminar right back to a specific CEDU workshop. This wasn't just borrowing a few ideas, this was a high-pressure, condensed copy.
And it goes even deeper than the techniques. They were literally speaking the same language. This glossary is so important because it reveals a shared, coded vocabulary that was designed to completely reshape how a person sees the world. I mean, if you control the language, you control how people think, right? They had special terms for peer confrontation, phrases to stop you from questioning things, specific concepts for confession. And here's the kicker. This language wasn't even invented by them. It was inherited from older, controversial groups like the Synanon cult and those large group awareness trainings like EST and LifeSpring.
So let's zoom in on one of these terms, the magical child. Now, this term was borrowed from pop psychology, and it was meant to represent your pure, true self. But inside these programs, it became a tool. It was used to get participants to break down, to produce these really emotional confessions, and to ultimately buy into the program's whole ideology, all under the guise of reconnecting with who you really are. And here it is, some direct, undeniable textual evidence, the word discharge. Now, this is not a generic therapy word you hear every day. It is a signature technical term from a very specific practice called reevaluation counseling. And how did it get into the troubled teen industry? Through Synanon. Finding this exact word in CEDU scripts is like finding a specific gene in a DNA test. It absolutely proves a direct lineage. And finally, we have the forensic fingerprint, the music playlist. I mean, just think about the odds. The chances of two totally separate programs independently choosing these 4 specific songs and then using them at functionally identical moments. Forever Young during the parent stuff, Greatest Love of All during self-reflection. It's just astronomically low. Music cues like this get copied from trainer to trainer, and this overlap is one of the strongest pieces of proof we have of a direct handoff. So the evidence for what was shared is pretty overwhelming. The next logical question is how? How did this technology, this blueprint, get transferred from one to the other? It's time to follow the paper trail back in time. All right, so here's a quick timeline just to set the stage. It all really kicks off with the attack therapy group Synanon back in 1958. Then CEDU gets founded in 1967. In the 70s, you get this human potential movement, which gives rise to EST and LifeSpring. And then, decades later, in 1998, WWASP appears, and what it does is inherit and combine all these different streams of thought. And here it is, the full family tree. This really is the big picture. You can clearly see two main branches. On one side, you have techniques from Scientology that get kind of laundered through Synanon and then passed directly to CEDU. On the other side, you've got the Est and Lifespring branch. For a while, these two streams developed side by side, but then trainers started moving between them, materials got copied, and eventually in the late 90s, they converged. And that convergence formed the curriculum that WWASP used. You can literally follow the flow of these coercive technologies from one box to the next. It's all connected.
Now that we can see the whole lineage, let's go back to the source code. We're going to deconstruct one of those original CEDU workshops, the Children's Prophet, to see exactly how these techniques were put into practice.
And what the original documents show is just mind-blowing. These were not spontaneous therapy sessions, not even close. As you can see from this cover page and the curated music list, they were pre-scripted theatrical productions. Every emotional high and low, every song, every confession, it was all planned out and rehearsed weeks in advance by the staff. And the sequence itself was just incredibly engineered. Step 1, enforce secrecy. You can't talk about what happens here. Then they infantilize everyone, giving them child names and using something as simple as a bubblegum contest to make them regress emotionally. From there, they bring up old wounds using negative nicknames and then move right into those scripted parent confrontations we saw earlier. It all builds up to a guided trance designed to take you back to your earliest childhood memories. It was just a methodical process for breaking down a person's identity.
So you see, this wasn't just one type of therapy. As this diagram shows, the Children's Prophet was a composite, an assembly. It pulled bits and pieces from 7 different psychological theories: inner child work, transactional analysis, primal therapy, and wove them all together. And here's the thing, none of these techniques were ever designed to be used like this, on captive, sleep-deprived minors in a coercive sequence. The assembly, the way they put it all together, that's what made it so powerful, and frankly, so dangerous. So, we've traced the blueprint, we've dissected its parts. But why does digging up this hidden history even matter today? What's the enduring legacy of all this?
Based on everything we've seen, the identical scripts, the shared secret language, the matching music, the historical paper trail, the conclusion is just unavoidable. WASP's seminars aren't just similar to the CEDU curriculum. They are a direct, textually provable descendant. This wasn't a coincidence. It was an inheritance. And if you take one thing away from this, let it be this. The danger wasn't in any single one of these therapeutic ideas on its own. It was the assembly. It was the act of weaving these techniques together and performing them in a specific sequence inside a high-pressure, totally isolated environment on a very vulnerable group of people. That is what created the coercive system. And that leaves us with a final, really difficult question. When a coercive methodology becomes a blueprint, something that's copied and passed down for decades across an entire industry, an industry where companies just change names to avoid being held responsible, who is ultimately accountable for all the harm it causes?